Today, Art in Adelaide is visiting Cheryl Bridgart in her beautiful Beltana House, which is a gallery and her home at the same time. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, welcome. Lovely to see you here.
Thank you. How did you get this idea to organize such a home-based gallery?
I actually don't call it a gallery, I call it my studio because it's not a commercial gallery. I started back in my career in 2010. I had almost a 10-year gap, still making, and I'd met John. I was getting lots of invitations interstate to do workshops and show my work when I started back. And John started looking for a place to show my work. And we found Beltana House. It was very run down, very rustic, needed a lot of work, which he did most of it himself. We bought it at the end of 9. I had my first solo, but I had it in the Adelaide Town Hall. From then on, since then, I've had a solo exhibition here for my work every year. We've also feel like we're the custodians of this 1860s building. So we do a number of charity events here, and so we want to share it. But I don't call it a gallery, it's my studio. It's where I peacefully work here. I get lots of inspiration.
There are so many your works on the walls and on the mannequins. And I know that you always open for Sala. And do you have some other days when people can come and see your works?
Yes, if somebody phones me and I'm here or arrange a time, I take, often there's interstate groups that'll drop in or friends, or they ring me and say, I've got some friends coming from overseas, could we do a little tour? I've also had retirement villages and schools, so other times it's by phone call, and generally we try and fit people in.
And do you have some workshops or demonstrations here?
I did my first one last year for free. It was for Flinders University. I haven't actually done a workshop here for some time. I haven't done any here until then, and it was open to anybody. So we had quite a lot of fun, from some children all the way through to some very elderly people. And as a result, I held a exhibition over a weekend of what they made. So it was textiles with a bit of handwork, machining, bit of paint on it, beading, so quite mixed media, focusing on birds and fish, so quite an easy topic.
So you mostly do the textile art, and how did you start it? Have you been doing this very type of art from very early age, or did you do some other arts? I don't ask if you started. Yeah.
Drawing all my life is drawing, and it's all I want to do is draw, but I love playing with textiles. I visit my grandmother. She had fabrics, and I used to like making dolls' clothes. It started with dolls' clothes. I cut a hole in one of my grandmother's fabrics, not on the edge, the bit I wanted in the middle. She was very angry with me. So after that, she had me sitting on a sewing machine. I also did some hand embroidery of decorating just a piece of plain fabric. I think it might have been a calico or a lawn. After that, I started really decorating fabrics and ended up starting to stitch on my clothes to make them a bit different from my sister. And by the time I was in my late teens, I started making all my clothes. The first original works, which I've got in some suitcases upstairs in storage, look like costumes. I remember one of my old friends came to one of my exhibitions and made a comment that a group of people came to my house to go out for one night, and they were saying, oh, what's she going to have on tonight? And he vividly remembers I came out as a tree. So my clothes probably aren't as weird as they used to be. I don't think they are. But I love to wear all my clothes. I draft the pattern, design them, and everything is always embroidered now.
Sure. These are beautiful examples of your garments which you made. Could you tell us about them a bit?
I'm known for my clothing. I've been wearing my art to wear every day of my life since I was in my late teens. So I don't have a pair of jeans, t-shirts, even this little top I made. I draft the pattern, I draw what I want to make, and so wherever you see me. And this is one of my earlier pieces, and it's called Contrasts and Conversations. Love beautiful construction. I love to play with drafting, so it's not a regular draft. Everything is lined, but all of these little faces were made and embroidered separately and then incorporated as I made it. This one's called Contrasts and Conversations because these little ladies can talk to each other. You know, hello, hello. And the hat is your bad hair day hat, so the hat is embroidered to look like hair.
Did you like formally study art and art of
Yes,
making clothes?
I didn't do art at school because primary school I did, but high school I didn't. My parents wanted me to get a proper career and go to university. I ended up getting into art school. I did art, and I went back and did one extra year, and that year I did textiles, which is what I wanted to do, and that's all I've done ever since.
Did you start your career as a textile artist straight after school, or did you have some other side job? Or
I did a little bit of teaching, and then I started making embroidered upmarket Australiana, so embroidered koalas, kangaroos, on mainly linens, and they were linen shirts, and some had little skirts or shorts to go with them. So that actually got me going, and then I started. So after that, I did a small business course. I then decided I was going to do wall art. I wasn't doing clothing anymore, so I started to do what I love to do on canvas and have them stretched.
when you work on this piece, it's not just like normal drawing, painting, when you can grab an eraser or put some another layer of paint.
Yes.
How did you manage to do all the things and to avoid mistakes, which could be quite critical for sewing?
It's an unforgivable medium because once you stitch, the stitches are really quite tiny. I use a very fine thread. It's almost impossible to unpick it. So along the way, I developed ways of solving that solution. One of my first portraits, I put so much detail in the eyes. I love the eyes, that she ended up with a pair of sunglasses on. So that's how I solved it. And I made a few little samples. So what I do now is I always start with a very pale thread. So it's like the first marks of a pencil. Don't pencil on it, but I love to free scribble, have my reference drawings near me, and I start scribbling out all over it. And then I'll go back and as I can change those first scribbles, I'll start putting more accurate lines in. But I'm not doing a continuous line around it. I'm stopping and starting all the time. I'm having to re-thread up the sewing machine with my next colour. You can see here there's some quite pale grey thread, but there was an even paler one under that. So often if you go up closely, I've got little magnifying glasses I leave in my gallery because somebody says, well, what's that underneath it? And if you have a look, it's probably the pale grey thread that's still there. So I use a lot of grey thread, which is like my pencil, and away I go.
You mentioned that you did a teaching. Was it the art teaching or?
Bit of art teaching. From 2000 to 2010, I had a part-time job at St Andrews at Walkerville. And it was about 200 applicants, and I was a bit different. I didn't have a portfolio of teaching aids, and I answered every question by saying, well, if I need teaching aids, I'm contemporary, I'll be making them. But I had a very good CV, and I love art. They said they could see I had a passion. Then they said the job was mine, and I really need to think about it. I thought, these are small children, but I fell in love with the job, and I ended up being there nearly every day of the week, even though I only paid for 2.5. I ended up doing sets, costumes. After that, during that time, I met John, and the school made me permanent, didn't want me to leave, and John said, follow your dream, go back and do what you want to do, and that's when we found this, and so I've been busy here ever since.
So now you're full-time textile artist, right?
Full-time textile artist, and I do make a living. I do get invited to do a few speaks or PowerPoints I do get commissions, but I also make, besides the big works that I exhibit and the clothing, I make small things like bow ties and brooches, hats. And I do tell young artists or artists starting out, you need your bread and butter pieces, the small works that will sell. And particularly in our climate at the moment, people don't have extra money to be splurging on artwork.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I do have, I've been lucky enough to have collectors who buy a few small pieces and eventually want a larger piece, because some of them take me, 200 hours to make, so they're not cheap.
That's the real price of real art. People never understand how many hours
No, they don't.
of work itself and how many hours of thinking about it you spend before you produce your piece.
I don't have writer's block. I'm drawing all the time. I just don't have enough hours to make what I want to make. And when something happens in my life or the world, it gives me a theme and I'll do a body of work. So each year my exhibition does have a sort of a connection through the whole work, rather than a pretty picture of flowers or a landscape and a big mix. I try and make a body of work that really relates and tells a story. Most of my work is about storytelling and narratives of things that are happening.
Cheryl, this work looks a bit different from your other works. It looks like it involved many more different techniques than just embroidery. Am I right?
It is, definitely. I continued to experiment. So I decided in my sketching, I imagined a tree and I was going to put birds on it. Birds are a big part of what I love. And at the time, we all wonder and worry about a place to live. And birds, so it's symbolic of home and nesting, and we hear about people that are homeless, but a bird will be very busy making their nest. They put a lot of effort into to rear their babies. So I decided to do a weaving, going back to my early days of art school when I did do a bit of weaving. And I just used all sorts of recycled bits of wool from my early days, things I knitted, things I dyed, a bit of spinning. So the whole piece became quite three-dimensional when I cut it off the frame, a lot of wrapping as well. So the background was the free stitching. Then I made lots of cords that were made out of strips of recycled torn fabric. So they became bigger leaves. Then the nest was stitched in, and each of the little birds, I left it so that it would become quite three-dimensional. And each of my little birds, which are finches, I did lots of little sketches of the birds, and I then embroidered them on white cotton lawn. And then once I'd got a bit of a shape, I then cut them out and edged it, and then I'd put little handles, little ties of thread, so I'd hold these under the needle. So it's quite laborious, it's quite difficult. You have to watch out you don't sew your fingers, and I ended up doing little hand sewing, hand embroidery of their little legs and feet. So I wanted them to be loose. So it's all about the symbol of home, birds building a nest like we all build our nests for our family.
And many people who just graduated from some different art institution and they would like to be full-time artists, they have no idea what to start from. Yeah. And if you would start your artistic journey now, what would you try to do? Maybe taking in account some mistakes which you made before, or some another new ideas? What
I think it's doing your research. It really is running a business. So I belong to Guild House, and we get a lot of professional development. It's been one of the best things I've done. I've been a consecutive member. I never stopped my membership, even during my 10 years of teaching. I kept my membership and went to professional development. It's learning to do your tax, learning social media, how to organise your files, lots of really help with helping to start a career. And I also did get, I've applied for grants but never got a grant, but I've been to some grant writing applications. Eventually I might get one. But I did get my new machine, which was through a government helping with small business. I'm a registered small business, so if you're exhibiting in galleries, you need an ABM. It is running as a business. All my work is photographed. I keep all my drawings organised each year, and on my files, my artwork is numbered with the date and the drawings that go with it. and the raw photos and low-res photos that go into social media, and high-resolution pieces that will be for printing. But it's actually working hard. I put a lot of hours in. So you treat it as a job.
But you do all this promotion by yourself, don't you?
I do it all by myself. Yeah. John does do some of my photography for me. Occasionally I have paid a photographer where I've needed a really amazing photo to get into some sort of competition. I didn't used to enter competitions, but I'm starting to do that a little bit more now. I guess it helps with getting your work out there and publicity, because most of my work I exhibit here. I do exhibit in a few mixed exhibitions, but having it here means I'm almost excluded sometimes. I'm not represented by a gallery. I don't have a curator that can come here and, you know, work out how the work should be hung or advise me. Mm-hmm. It is running as a business, and you have to be organised, you have to work hard, you have to be patient and just keep getting your work out there.
Good. I think it's really helpful advice.
Also being original. Yeah. I never copy anyone. Yeah. I never copy photos, I don't find a picture in a magazine, all from my drawings. So I make sure...
And from your dreams.
From my dreams, and I make sure I'm not copying what someone else does, and I don't care. I do what I love, and if somebody likes it, they might buy it. If they don't, well, hopefully someone else will.
And you mentioned that you're a member of Guild House, and are you a member of some other art groups?
I'm a member of the Contemporary Collectors at the Art Gallery. I like to keep in touch with what's happening. I was there this morning for the opening of the new tour of the new biennial. It's always exciting to be a part of a major gallery. I don't have my work collected here, but I have interstate. I have got some of my work in a gallery there. It's yeah, good time of the year.
Textile art is quite specific type of art, which someone does not recognize an art. Did you meet such attitude in your practice?
It's been a difficult task right from the start, because when I was starting, I rang galleries for them to see my work. Often they were not interested because it was embroidery. And I had a couple of bad meetings with someone that said it wasn't art, even though I take the same process as if I was drawing a picture. I'm hatching, cross-hatching, I'm looking at distance and composition, looking at form to make things come alive. I have to mix colours often optically by putting a coloured thread next to another one to change it. It's been a difficult thing because textiles almost has thought of as a second cousin to painting. Painting is up there as the supreme, especially oil paintings. I think barriers are starting to break down, but there are still exhibitions that and competitions where they exclude textiles, and I'll just say it's painting only. I noticed that the Archibald has changed its rules a little bit. There was a piece that was the winner last year, which was appliqued fabrics, hand stitching, but a lot of oil paint. And so that's breaking boundaries. It isn't easy with textiles, but I've battled on. I'll take up a challenge. I have got a piece of work here which was made in response that my work wasn't accepted.
Cheryl, this artwork is so orange and red, bright, it looks like fire. I feel like it has some story behind.
You have definitely picked it. It's actually called Fired Up, and I've used yellows, oranges, reds, and it's a bold face. As an artist, you put work into exhibitions, and sometimes you get in, sometimes you don't. This particular exhibition I did get in, and when I stayed the night in a motel to go to the opening and couldn't find my work anywhere, and found one of the organisers, and they said the judge had it removed because it wasn't considered to be a piece of art, it was a textile. And he didn't realise it was textile. It was a very detailed group portrait that I spent a long time on from lots of sketches. And I was really upset. They wouldn't let me take it home either. It was in storage, so I had to wait till the exhibition finished. So I went to the motel. This is what I drew. And I was fired up. This is going to be a challenge I'm going to take up. I'm not going to let it affect me. So I drew the judge as a fiery figure. Well, that's sort of me and the judge. This was my response. So the colours are powerful. So I always say, never get upset, just keep trying, take up the challenge. So it really changed my colour palette there for a while.
Yeah, and to show your emotions through your art.
Show my emotion. And my names are always part of the artwork. It's the feeling that the artwork gives you is usually indicative in the name. So this one was very simple, fired up.
Some people can say about some artists, it's a professional artist, and about others, oh, it's just a hobby artist. And certainly there is some difference between people who is a full-time artist and work on their pieces every single day, and someone who does it just for fun. But sometimes it's just a fine line between them. Did you think sometimes where this fine line is?
Sometimes I feel sorry for young artists coming out because they want to put a good price on it, they want to make a living, and then they'll put their work in an exhibition with some hobby artists who don't really care that they've covered the costs of their time, their materials. So somebody entering that exhibition, I've heard it happen, they'll say, oh, that piece is $200 or $400, but I like the piece over there, but that's $800. I think I'll buy the $400. And really, the artist that put $800 on theirs, probably it's their livings. It is difficult, and I think sometimes people don't realise that if you are a hobby artist, and there are some fantastic hobby artists, but they're not interested in making a living. They do it for the love of it, and they'd love somebody to take their work home. So yeah, hobby artists, there is a difference, but.
Cheryl, do you believe that sometimes some coincidence could make quite significant change in artist's life?
You know what, quite a few have happened to me, and one was when I first started. I was getting ready for a little gallery in the Adelaide Hills, offered me one of my first solos. And so I worked so hard for this that my poor old sewing machine was wearing out. The feed dogs didn't drop. I never used hoops because I never thought I was embroidering. I thought I was just drawing on canvas. And I bubbled the enamel off the machine. I took it in for a service, and they kept saying, what have you done to this? So I gave them an invite to my exhibition, and the big boss of that machine company flew from Melbourne, actually bought 4 of my artworks, and then commissioned another 4. I had to embroider sewing machines. So I was embroidering sewing machines on canvas, and they had names like elegance and sophistication. One of them I had to embroider wine glasses and bottles of wine with the sewing machine to give it that elegance and sophistication. From that experience, that company took me around Australia. I was just starting. Everyone kept saying you're doing it wrong, because I didn't use zigzag. I just used freestyle straight stitch on nothing, so it was just drawing a line, and I never used hoops, but I could draw faces and everything without pictures and pencil marks. So they took me around Australia. So that's where it really gave me an amazing opportunity. And then one of the other machine companies saw my work, which was Beltana, and they've been a fantastic company to. They don't give me machines for free now, but they've been a big support of inviting me to shows and exhibitions. And sometimes something good happens if you work hard and you do something different.
Thank you, Cheryl, for having us. Thank you for this beautiful interview and for your generous sharing your stories.
And thank you. I'm quite honoured to be part of your interviews. Thank you so much.
I think that everyone will admire again.